How many children do you have?
4.
What are their names?
Plunder, Clayton, Chase, and Alexis.
And you know, this is heavy on you, and it's something that you couldn't sleep because you knew that day was coming and it was building.
Yep.
And that's why you couldn't work today. You knew it had to be done, and you came home.
Do you remember your wife trying to stop you from shooting your children?
That's why you gotta do her first.
So yes, that was Chad Doerman after he felled all 3 of his beautiful young sons, and he left the mother of his children, Laura Doerman, alive, and her daughter Alexis. Brave women, let me tell you, to put up with that tragedy. But he had the nerve to say, that's why you got to do her first. In this interrogation, it sounds like the cops are trying to sympathize with him in order to get the truth out. And we don't ever really get the truth out from Chad Doerman. Instead of breaking down and saying, oh my goodness, I should have never done this. I don't know what happened. I lost my head. I'm so regretful. No, he said, that's why you got to do her first, because Laura fought valiantly to save her children in the face of this evil. And did his face look a little swollen right there on the left-hand side to you in that second snippet where he goes, that's why you got to do her first? I don't know. Remember the videos? I will link to my previous videos about this case down below. There's a video where Chad is first brought into jail and he's banging his head against the wall. I don't know. Did a cop, give him a punch? Who knows? Anyway, we learned a lot yesterday from the presser about the Claremont County crime that happened last year. And I got the entire PowerPoint presentation, and it includes videos, Chad's interviews. They're more so snippets. It has the full 2 never-before-heard 911 calls from Laura. Those were horrible. I had to just cry listening to those. I've listened to them at least twice now, and that's enough. I'm not going to play them here on YouTube. I put them in the video on Patreon. The link is below. I see why they stopped playing part of Laura's 911 calls.
You hear the male voice. That is Chad telling Laura to get off. She is fighting to save her children. That's enough.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's enough. We'll go to the next slide. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Do you want to do CPR? I can help you speak somebody to get your name.
That's enough for now. You will get the whole call. Thank you.
First off, the first one really angered me, the way that 911 operator, he was acting like, what? Calm down, I can't hear you. And of course, Laura was hysterical. How many of us would be very calm if 3 of our children, little babies, were taken out in such a violent way before our very eyes? Laura screamed her address on Laurel Lindell Lane. But the 911 dispatcher kept saying, what? Huh? Calm down. I can't understand what's going on. I mean, that's a really long call. That first one is 4.2 minutes long. The second call that Laura made that Thursday, June 15th, 2023, was 8.8 minutes long. It took place at 4:21 p.m., 5 minutes after she made the first 911 call. Now, in certain ones of those calls, I think it's the second one, is very heartbreaking. They cut it off at the presser because Laura is saying, these people standing across the street at the firefighters' location, she's like, they're staring at me. Why aren't they coming to help me? It is really heartbreaking. You can hear Chad's voice in the background. You can hear him saying, move. You can hear all this stuff. The docket over there on YouTube is really breaking down and trying to hear. In this coming up, I've narrated and I've boosted as much as I can. The interviews, there's Chad Doerman's full Kroeger video visit. They sped through a little bit of it in the presser, but I have the whole thing coming up. There's no audio in that. There was a Ring video capturing Alexis, the teenage daughter, begging for her life from Chad. And then at the end, we're going to go through this in chronological order. At the end, when it gets to the points where Chad was, I guess, knowingly or unknowingly, bragging on his jail phone calls and his audio recorded video visits with his family, we don't get the visuals, we just get the audio. He's bragging about matching Hitler. You know, oh, like that's effing awesome, dude. Kind of like he's internationally known for evil.
Do you feel bad for what you did? No. He said I'm in New Zealand. That's fucking awesome. Hey, they thought Hitler was big, dude. Fuck yeah, I'm matching him.
This guy. And it shows you how much of a liar he is. At different points in his interviews, these snippets we're going to watch, he talks about not remembering what happened that day and who, what happened.
Did you shoot your son?
No.
Who did?
I don't remember. What happened?
That's what I want to ask you. What happened today? I don't know. I wasn't there.
I don't know what happened. I know what happened.
Later, he talks about knowing what happened. He even named the order in which he shot his sons, even though that's not their chronological age order. He named it in that order to the cops. And when he's on the phone with his mom, he's so cavalier and nonchalant. And he's like, I remember everything, down to all the reasons why I did everything. But he never tells people the reasons.
And I know you don't remember it. And you know only what they tell you. But she remembers.
No, I remember everything.
You do?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Lie down. I'm not talking about nothing. Because you said you didn't. I know you don't. You're lying.
No, I swear to God I do. Yep. All the way to the point, and all the way to all the reasons why and everything.
So let's just go over this step by step because they laid it out in a good way. I don't know if they're going to give us more, like the entire unedited interrogation videos. Previously, they gave us all the body cam videos. We got other 911 calls. This is the first time we've heard Laura's. Again, that's only on Patreon. I don't know if we'll get any more of Chad's phone calls, but this is what I received. The actual PowerPoint presentation. Some of it was presented yesterday. Yesterday was Monday, August 5th. I got it straight from Brian Shrive. He's the assistant prosecuting attorney in Claremont County in Batavia, Ohio. So I turned it into this full narrated video that I want to talk to you about. So you guys don't have to read the slides and then we'll see, what evidence they've presented to us. Because of course, Chad just pled guilty. A lot of this is evidence we would have seen in a court trial, but alas, no long drawn out trial. I'm kind of glad he entered a guilty plea. I'm glad they didn't drag his wife and his daughter and all these witnesses into court. I mean, I heard that their victim statements were powerful enough, and then Chad actually cried, I guess, during his stepdaughter's statement. So he has some emotions, but for what? For himself? It makes no sense. That's why, let's just talk about it all. The first phone call audio 911, I think that would make for a great training for 911 operators on what not to do. I know Laura was screaming, I know she was hysterical, but I was able to hear her make out her home address, screamed at him, and I hope that dispatcher immediately typed it in and sent people on the way. Maybe he did, forgive me if he did, but when you go listen to it, sounds like it's just frustrating. It's just a lesson in frustration. The second call was better. Laura was saying, I can't even believe this is my life right now. They didn't play all that in yesterday's presser, not the whole Kroeger video, most of it, but you'll hear Laura saying, I hate him. I hate this man. He took my life from me, my life. And she's even blaming herself. She said, I should have got the hell out of here. I should have got him out. This isn't fair. So I'm not putting it on here. It was good that Law and Crime streamed the presser. I couldn't find a lot of mainstream media that was streaming the presser. So they continued. I was watching a different, maybe WBTV or WBTW. Somebody was streaming it on Twitter. And as soon as we got that admonition, we're about to play these graphic 911 calls, you guys use your discretion on how you present this, that station just cut their live feed.
You're going to hear a couple 911 calls. And I ask you, in your discretion and your sensibility for the privacy and dignity of the family, to limit, as you see fit, what is disseminated to the public.
Shrive wrote to me I will ask you to remember Prosecutor Takul's admonition to use your best discretion when deciding what to air. So that's why I thought, okay, yeah, maybe just not on YouTube. It's the kind of thing you really don't want to hear more than once, really. I only listened to them twice so I could be able to explain to those of you who don't want to hear them at all just what they contain. So let's go through this whole timeline and we'll see at the end those really cocky phone calls, audio. Chad, did he know he was being recorded? The way he talks with his mom, and at one point he's speaking with, I guess, his parents or his siblings and bragging about being as famous as Hitler. I don't know what's wrong with this guy. There's Chad Doerman, the husband, the killer, shouldn't even be called a dad. Then there's Laura Doerman, his wife. We don't know if they were on the rocks, if their marriage was suffering. I had heard rumors on Facebook. You never know what turns out to be true. There was rumors that Laura might have wanted to divorce him. We've watched that video in the past from their neighbor, claiming that Chad was always yelling at his boys and he was doing this and that. As we read Laura's statement at the end, she was saying this is something she could have never expected. It's really sad. There's Alexis, the 14-year-old who survived. There was Clayton, 7 years old, Hunter, 4 years old, and Chase. He was the 3-year-old, and I like his nickname, Chasers.
This tragedy happened in June 2023. The Doerman family consisted of Chad Doerman, the murderer, Laura Doerman, his wife, Laura's 14-year-old daughter, Alexis Skeen, and the 3 young boys who lost their lives tragically at the hands of their biological dad. That fateful day, Chad took the lives of his 3 sons, Clayton Doerman, 7 years old, Hunter Doerman, 4 years old, Chase Doerman, 3 years old. The presentation began with a bit of history about the family, before delving into the events leading up to the tragedy. Alexis is an outstanding student, an up-and-coming softball star in the area. Clayton, Hunter, and Chase are all happy, active boys. The boys love baseball, monster trucks, fishing, and go-karting on their property with their sister. Chad worked full-time as a member of the Insulators Union, while Laura stayed home with the boys and homeschooled Clayton. Prior to June 2023, there were no police reports regarding any domestic disturbances at the 1965 Laurel Lindale residence. For all intents and purposes, to the outside world, the family seemed happy.
So after we learned about the history of the family, a little bit of their personalities, I like the way it was presented days leading up to the crime. From that Saturday, June 10th, what was going on that day and what was in Chad's mind?
Saturday, June 10th, 2023. The defendant takes the boys to races at a local dirt track to have a boys' day. He encourages his wife and stepdaughter to go shopping and spend time together. The defendant reported no issue sleeping that night.
That's crazy how Chad was playing Dad of the Year, taking his boys to that local dirt track. I wonder if those are the photos we've seen with them all together. You know, encouraging Laura and Alexis to go shopping, spend some time together. No issues sleeping that night for him. When did he start really thinking about it in his mind that he was going to enact this horrible crime against his family, and we still don't know why? Was Laura really planning to leave him? I mean, I read this horrible Facebook post. You know how these crimes can happen, and some people just immediately, jump to the defense of the killer. I remember in yesterday's press conference, they said Laura had chosen to homeschool the boys, or at least one of the boys, and they made a note to say it was both Laura and Chad's decision, I guess, that she would stay home for a time and homeschool. And if you look in the history, I think I've delved into some of their financial problems and everything. When this case first happened, I remember reading this horrible, it might have been anonymous, Facebook post, almost trying to excuse Chad for what he did. It's so horrible. They were saying like, oh, poor Chad, he was left to, do all this work and work so hard for his family, and he was losing his mind because he was working so hard, as if they were insinuating Laura wasn't doing enough work. It's horrible how those kind of voices sometimes come out after a tragedy. I hope they wouldn't say the same thing now, but I'm trying to get to the bottom of what was the issue of discord? Well, yesterday in the presser, I guess we learned Laura, if she so chooses one day, Perhaps she'll tell her story, so she knows what she's been through. She knows what her and her daughter have survived, and I pray for her especially now. Imagine Chad on this phone call we will hear at the end, just so callous. You know, he's kind of like, oh, I think I'll call her. His own mother is saying, look, take advice from me, your mother, do not call her. And Chad is just kind of like, it's almost like he's saying she'll get over it. His mother is trying to impress upon him she is really grieving. She, you took all this away from her. And he's kind of like, she'll be all right. Maybe I'll call her. As if he's Jesus, as if he's everything in life. Prince Charming, and one phone call from him would take away her pain. I don't know. This dude, he's on another level. He is on one for real. So moving forward.
Sunday, June 11th, 2023. The defendant takes the boys fishing. There were no reports of any abnormal behavior from the defendant on this day. The defendant provides conflicting statements about whether he slept Sunday night.
That Sunday, Chad is pretending to be dad of the year again, taking his boys fishing and all that. So we don't know if he slept well or not Sunday night because he keeps contradicting himself, apparently.
Monday, June 12th, 2023. The defendant goes to work Monday morning as usual. The defendant's co-workers do not report anything abnormal in the defendant's behavior. The defendant gave conflicting statements about whether he slept or whether he didn't sleep too good.
So Monday, it's getting closer to the day. It's Monday, June 12th. He goes into work. His coworkers are like everything seemed business as usual. So again, Chad is lying or giving conflicting statements. Either he didn't sleep too good or maybe he did.
Tuesday, June 13th, 2023. The defendant went to work as usual Tuesday morning. After work, the defendant returned home and worked on his vehicle's headlights. The defendant gave conflicting statements about whether he slept Tuesday night, but eventually indicates he didn't sleep too good either that night, maybe just a few hours.
Tuesday, June 13th. He went to work, came home, worked on the headlights of his vehicle. Again, sleep is brought up as an issue, but he's saying maybe he slept only just a few hours that night. And a lack of sleep can be really like a torture technique. No excuses, I'm just trying to dig to the bottom of why would Chad do such a thing? These beautiful boys, was he trying to kill a part of himself, but without taking out himself? And that's why Laura and the children and everyone, they were all in the master bedroom with him apparently before this horror happened. They were trying to tell Chad, we love you so much, don't do yourself in. They thought he was going to take his own life. Little did Laura know this man would turn the gun on such young, innocent boys and even shoot her in the thumb when she tries to prevent him from shooting anymore.
Wednesday, June 14th, 2023. Wednesday morning, the defendant wakes his stepdaughter before he leaves for work. He tells her he loves her and apologizes for whatever I've done to you and for anything I've done to hurt you. Defendant goes to work that morning as usual. Co-workers report no abnormal behavior from the defendant. On the evening of June 14th, 2023, the defendant went to and coached Clayton's baseball game. The entire family went to the baseball game and believed, other than being distracted, the defendant was acting normally. The defendant gave multiple reports that he couldn't sleep at all that night.
So we've got Wednesday, it's coming up to D-Day, June 14th. It's Wednesday morning, Chad starts doing something unusual. He's going into Alexis's room before work. He's waking her up. He's telling her he loves her. He's apologizing for, quote, whatever I've done to you, for anything I've done to hurt you. Then he goes off to work. Nothing unusual there that his coworkers notice. And I'm sure Alexis probably told her mom, Chad came in my room and he said these things and it's so weird. It reminds me of Chris Watts, like these men that allow evil to just enter them, just like Judas, that verse when it's like, and Satan entered Judas. They get a plan in their head. Was it Chad's way of freeing himself of financial responsibility? Did he want to go to prison? What the heck? But it's almost that methodical, yep, tomorrow's the day, like Chris Watts said. I knew the night before that's the last time I'm going to tuck my babies in. And I'm always like, why not interrupt the pattern right there? If you know someone is putting evil thoughts in my head to get rid of my family, that's not normal. Just, turn the other way. Do anything different, anything better. Even if he had left Chad and Chris, even if he had left his wife and children and abandoned them, they would have been better off than doing what they did. So again, Father of the Year, the night before, it's June 14th still, Chad is going and coaching Clayton's baseball game. The whole family went to the baseball game, and they said Chad was pretty much acting normal, except he was distracted. So was he off thinking of his plan? How am I going to do this? Tomorrow's the day. So he's saying he couldn't sleep at all that night. Ugh.
Thursday, June 15th, 2023. The defendant got up and went to work, arriving at approximately 7 o'clock a.m. On his way into work, the defendant searches YouTube for a song titled Happy in Hell by Colt Ford. The lyrics read, "Between happy and hell, that's where I'm living. Now I really want to love her, but I just don't think that I know how. Can't give her everything she needs. Can I give her everything I want? Will it be about what I do? Will it be about what I don't? Will it be about what is right? Forget about what is wrong. Will she love the man I am, or the man that sings this damn song? Don't know if I'll ever know the truth. It might not ever show. But if I never tell the truth, then will she ever know? Am I her shining light, or just her darkest day? I wonder if she'll leave. Hell, I wonder if she'll stay. Oh God, I'm so confused. Is it a lie or truth? I'm in the crossroads. Tell me which one to choose. Is there a right or wrong? It's getting hard to tell. I need to know the price, and sure I'd buy or sell. God, I really love her, but should I ever tell? I guess I'll just live here between happy and hell. Chorus, Wanya Morris. I'm in a catch-22. Damned if I don't, damned if I do. I'm in love with another girl, and I've been dreaming in another world. I've been living with the devil, while I'm creeping with an angel. All's well that ends well. I guess I'll be happy in hell.
Now we get to the unfortunate day, Thursday, June 15th. So Chad got up as usual, I guess, arrived at work around 7 a.m. Here we go with another song. Someone Googling a song, some perhaps evil-themed song, Happy in Hell. I don't know. Just because it says happy in hell, well, it's not possible to be happy in hell. Let me tell you, I hate books like that. I hope they serve beer in hell and, people who think it's just going to be a riot. It's not. I suggest you read 23 Minutes in Hell. That's a great book. But anyway, here we go with another guy Googling a song, kind of like Chris Watts Googling the lyrics to Metallica's Battery, even though I really like Metallica. I had not heard of this Happy in Hell song, so let's talk about these lyrics. What could they mean for Chad? Did he just like the beat of the song, or were the lyrics really speaking to him? So they put a photo here. His web history, June 15th, 2023, it says 6:14 a.m. and he's Googling Happy in Hell song. He's looking it up on YouTube. So I don't know if he sat there and listened to it before work, but it speaks to problems in a relationship. It made me wonder, was Chad cheating on his wife because of the chorus? But it's talking about, he wants to love this woman. I just don't think I know how. He can't give her everything she needs. Can I give her everything I want? Will she love the man I am, or the man that sings this damn song? Am I her shining light or just her darkest day? Believe me, you are her darkest day, Chad. I wonder if she'll leave. I wonder if she'll stay. He's so confused. He really loves her. And then this chorus, he's in a catch-22. Damned if I don't, damned if I do. I'm in love with another girl. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that he was having an affair, but I wonder what all the problems were. I think there were problems. I'm trying to remember all the Facebook rumors, the Facebook posts and everything. I believe there was drinking on Chad's side, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe Laura really did consider leaving him. And, sometimes you're in a rock and a hard place. And if money's tight, some couples just stay together because divorce is too expensive. Some people are just like, why don't you just leave? They make it sound so simple. Some couples, it's just not so easy to pick up and let me take all these 4 kids with me and find another place to live and get away from him, it's not necessarily an easy feat.
Thursday, June 15th, 2023. While at work that morning, the defendant's boss noticed nothing abnormal about the defendant's behavior. The defendant leaves work at approximately 9:30 a.m. and proceeds to Kroeger off of Beachmont and 5 Mile. 9:42 a.m. The defendant arrives at Kroeger. 9:44 a.m. The defendant enters Kroeger. 9:45:02 a.m. The defendant is in the supplement vitamin aisle. 9:45:57 a.m. The defendant walks over to the little clinic. 9:47:34 a.m. The defendant leaves the little clinic without signing in or talking to any staff. The defendant immediately heads for the exit. 9:58:37 a.m. The defendant exits Kroeger.
Even though Chad arrived at work at 7 a.m. that Thursday morning, he was leaving work at 9:30 a.m. going to the Kroeger off Beech Tree and 5 Mile. So now we finally know what that Kroeger's visit kind of was about. Previously, when we were just looking up little released facts of this case last year, we saw something about Kroeger, and we were wondering, like, they were looking for the surveillance video, and we had heard the rumors. Rumors kind of flow into affidavits, so sometimes I've read so many affidavits about this case and search warrants combined with all the Facebook rumors. Sometimes I get them jumbled. We knew about Chad's little clinic visit, and don't you hate it that no one was there? 9:42 a.m. Chad arrived at Kroeger. He entered Kroeger a couple of minutes later. So he's staring around in this vitamin aisle. He goes over to the little clinic. He's just waiting. He doesn't sign in. He doesn't talk to anybody. And then by 9:58, he exits, which is horrible to think. You always play the what if game. What if someone was there? He had called his mother, apparently, according to the presser. And I guess his mother was the one who recommended going to the little clinic. But as they said in the presser, she didn't reach out and try and get him help some other way. I don't know if the little clinic would have been able to help him, what he would have even told them if he was having these strange thoughts, but we wish someone could have intervened. Of course, it's not their fault. I just wish more help could have been brought at that point. Like Laura is going to say, call 388. You don't have to be embarrassed. Just reach out, talk to someone.
Since this surveillance video has no audio, I'll play audio from the press conference.
That we don't know. This is him walking in. I can't tell.
He arrives and will park.
This is 5 or 10 minutes. We're not going to play it. We can just zip through it.
Katie can use the mouse to fast forward.
But again, this will all be in the information we provide and release. That's him, entering from the top. The same clothes he was wearing when he killed his sons a few hours later. We need to take out these images of other folks. It's him. Green shirt, blue jeans. It is noteworthy while we're going through this that despite the fact that his mother suggested he go to the little clinic, she never alerted Laura, never called 911 on his behalf, never called a crisis hotline, did nothing.
Did he only say confusing feelings? Did he
Let me run through this. I might take some questions afterwards. Thank you.
Do you know what he's looking at there?
Do not. I believe this is the little clinic counter.
Do we know what he purchased that day?
Nothing to our knowledge.
Or what he asked at the counter?
There's no one there.
So he leaves the counter. So he drives home. On the way home, he stops, buys a 16-ounce Bud Light, goes out to the shed behind the house. The family then arrives from running some errands, and the boys, happy to see their father, run to say hello to him. Just a normal afternoon or a normal morning, other than he came home a little bit early that day. He plays with the boys while Laura makes lunch. While eating lunch, oddly, the defendant says to Laura that this will be my last good meal. Having no information, no idea what Chad was contemplating, Laura begins to worry that this is a statement that he may be contemplating suicide. Shortly before he kills his kids, Doerman calls his father and makes the statement that Clayton is going to be the hardest one. And down below, this is an excerpt from Doerman's phone records.
So that's when he headed home, but he stopped to get the 16-ounce Bud Light. So that's pretty early in the morning. Did he drink the Bud Light, I wonder, or did he just stop and get it? Was he trying to get a little liquid courage in the morning to know what he was going to do later that day? So he goes out to his shed, and this is the heartbreaking part. His family makes it home from running the errands, and the boys are like running over to him, running over to Dad to say hi. And he's playing with the boys, Laura's making lunch, and then he's telling Laura, quote, this will be his last good meal.
The defendant then leaves and heads home. On the way home, the defendant stops and buys a 16-ounce Bud Light. Once at home, the defendant goes out to the shed. As he is near the shed, his family arrives home from errands. The boys run to the defendant to say hello. The defendant spends some time playing with the boys while his wife makes lunch. While eating lunch, the defendant tells his wife that this will be his last good meal. This comment, along with other similar comments, led his wife to believe that the defendant was contemplating suicide.
And so again, Laura is probably thinking, oh boy, he's giving hints. What he said to Alexis in the morning when he woke her up, and now he's saying this is his last good meal, and she may not have known he had been to the little clinic and had reached out to his mom for help. Those comments made Laura think, oh no, he's trying to do away with himself. Let me tell him how much we love him. It's so sad.
"12:50 p.m. The defendant calls his father and makes the statement that Clayton's going to be the hardest.
Now this phone call where Chad told his father Clayton's going to be the hardest, boy, what was that phone call like? I mean, did he give him any context? Did he just call his dad and say, you know, Dad, Clayton's going to be the hardest? And was his dad like, what are you talking about? You know? Or did he delve more? And of course, hindsight is 20/20. A lot of people are like, why didn't his mom do this? Why didn't his dad do this? But we don't know. If they never expected Chad to ever turn a gun on his sons, you know, it's kind of difficult to say all these facts as we have them now, knowing what happened. It's kind of difficult to say, oh, his family, everyone should have known what he was about to do.
12:55 through 3:30 p.m. The defendant then spends the afternoon doing yard work and playing with the kids. 3:30 through 3:45 p.m. The defendant begins to read the Bible to Hunter. 3:55 p.m. The defendant is walking around with the Bible, mumbling, "Chad knows what's right." 3:57 through 3:59 p.m. The defendant gets into the gun safe, leaving it unlocked. His wife tells him he's scaring her, and he responds, "I'm just playing around."
So then 12:55, almost 1 o'clock, all the way until 3:30. So that's a good 2.5 hours. He's doing yard work. He's playing with the kids. Just how confusing. 3:30 to 3:45 p.m. I hate this, that Chad began to read the Bible to Hunter. I hate when people who are performing evil acts or, you know, they start bringing scripture into it in a way that's just wacky. Like, God's word is healing and life. It's not about evil and weirdness. So 3:55, it's almost 4 o'clock. He's walking around with his Bible mumbling, "Chad knows what's right." I don't know. I don't understand. Was this an act? Was he trying to put on? Or we'll get more into later what they determined were his personality defects, his controlling behavior. Like, I can't get over that Facebook post where he's with Laura in the snow. And he describes, waking the boys up at like 11 p.m. or something, sometime in there, because he was afraid the snow would melt. Now, normally, if that's a cute and quirky dad, one of those quirky dads, or if something's going on, like I mentioned before, in that scene in that movie, The Stepmom, I love it, where Susan Sarandon, she's dying of cancer. She wakes her daughter up. They get on a horse. They take this special ride in the middle of the night and it's snowing. Now, something like that, of course, it's beautiful. But to me, I read this as a weird thing for Chad to wake up his 3 young boys in the middle of the night because he wanted to play in the snow because he was afraid the snow would disappear. And I'm thinking to myself, that would just anger any mom, I think. Like, once you get especially 3 rambunctious boys down for the night, young boys, this was like maybe the previous year, this might have been in 2022. Kids need their sleep. What kind of guy is going to go wake up 3 young boys in the middle of the night because he wants to play in the snow because he's afraid it'll disappear? That to me reminded me of his controlling nature, his controlling behavior we're going to get to at the end. This is when the horror starts around 3:57, 3:59. Chad goes to the gun safe, leaves it unlocked. Laura's like, look, you're scaring me. And he's like, oh, I'm just playing around. These are the type of people who don't need to own guns. A person like Chad does not need a gun anywhere near him.
4 p.m. The defendant continuously tells the boys he loves them and they did nothing wrong, and that they are the best boys ever. 4 through 4:15 p.m. The defendant, his wife, and all 3 boys go into the master bedroom. After initially lying in the bed, the defendant jumps up and grabs a rifle from the safe. At that point, the entire family is in the bedroom and is convinced the defendant was going to kill himself. 4 o'clock through 4:15 p.m. The family tells the defendant they love him and beg him not to kill himself. Laura takes out her phone and tells him she's going to call 911. The defendant grabs her phone from her, tells her it's too late, and throws her phone. 4 o'clock through 4:15 p.m. The defendant then aims the firearm and shoots at Hunter, striking him multiple times as he tried to flee. Laura screams at the other children to run, while she tries to render aid to Hunter and call 911. Hunter had been shot in the right arm, right torso stomach area, and twice in the right side of his head. 4:16 p.m. The first 911 call is made.
4 p.m. Oh, here he goes. He's telling the boys, okay, he loves them. They're the best boys ever. They did nothing wrong. I'm glad they got to hear that, but I wish to God they would have never experienced a father like this who did this to them. So 4 o'clock to 4:15. Chad, Laura, all 3 boys go into the master bedroom. I think they were thinking, let us watch Chad. Laura was probably like, let me, calm him down. Maybe he needs more rest. He got home early. Okay, maybe he just needs to sleep. Maybe he'd feel better. All of a sudden, this dude, Chad, is jumping up and grabbing a rifle from the safe. And Laura had to be like, what are you doing? But still, she's in that help mode, please don't harm yourself, Chad. She's thinking he's turning it on himself. They're begging him not to do it. They're telling him they love him. Laura's like, I'm gonna call 911. He's grabbing her phone and throwing it, saying it's too late. And then, instead of turning this rifle on himself, Chad turns the rifle on Hunter. Little boy. So he does it and he strikes him multiple times. Hunter's trying to get out of there. And Laura's trying to help Hunter. She's calling 911. That's when, you hear all her screams and everything. And it's horrible. I think you even hear, if the phone is near Hunter, I don't know if it is, and you hear the breathing. At first I was like, please let this be the breathing of the 911 operator, but I unfortunately don't think it is. I think it is the breathing of the little boy, perhaps Hunter. So he'd been shot in his right arm, his right torso stomach area, and twice in the side of his right head. If anything, I wish it were instantaneous. Of course, I wish it never happened, but I always pray in some of these cases I can't even handle, especially when it involves children, but I always pray God just took them before they just experienced all this pain.
4:16 through 4:21 p.m. While Laura is calling 911, fighting with the defendant, and Hunter is taking his last breaths, Clayton and Alexis flee out the back door of the house. Laura carries Hunter outside and attempts to render life-saving measures. Meanwhile, Clayton flees into a field behind the house while the defendant pursues him. Alexis witnesses the defendant stop and take aim at Clayton. The defendant shoots Clayton from a distance, knocking the boy to the ground. 4:16 through 4:21 p.m. Alexis then witnesses the defendant approach Clayton, point the rifle down at him, and fire multiple times. Clayton was shot in the left arm, the back, and twice in the head. 4:16 through 4:21 p.m. After witnessing the defendant execute Clayton, Alexis turns and runs back into the house to grab Chase. She takes Chase in her arms and then flees the residence and begins to run with Chase. 4:16 through 4:21 p.m. As Alexis flees with Clayton, the defendant hunts her down, stopping her and holding her at gunpoint. Ring cameras from a nearby neighbor capture Alexis begging the defendant not to shoot her.
So then 4:16 to 4:21, Laura's on the phone with 911. She is fighting with Chad. And then Hunter is taking his last breaths. Clayton and Alexis are getting out the back of the house, trying to escape. And Laura is taking Hunter outside. She wants to do CPR. On the 911 calls, you hear her saying she's just screaming, and she's just like, the second one is better because the woman talks her through doing CPR. But she's like, how can I do CPR on 3 boys at one time? It's horrible. So Clayton is running to that field behind the house, but unfortunately Chad is following him. Alexis sees this. They make sure to tell us who is a literal witness to this tragedy. Alexis sees Chad stop and take aim at Clayton as if he's like hunting a deer or something, and just shoots the boy down. So it knocks him down to the ground, and that's why we'll see later he, grabbed Clayton and sling him over his shoulder, and that's why he had the blood on the back of his shirt. So again, that first 911 call was made around this time. It's horrible, it's disturbing, it's frustrating. I know people in an emergency, they say you should keep your cool, keep your head, keep your calm, and try and relay information, but who could blame Laura for just being hysterical? In the meantime, Alexis is witnessing Chad shooting Clayton in the left arm, in the back, and twice in the head. So Alexis sees this, and so she's like, I better go get Chase. The youngest, the little baby. Alexis and to me, Laura, they're heroes. I know, people would think, Laura, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? She can blame her own self, but it's like, no one expected this demon to do this to these little boys. So Alexis, she's grabbing Chase and she's fleeing. And again, Chad is hunting her down. And that's when we hear the horrible audio of Alexis begging for her life.
(4:16 through 4:21 p.m.) While the defendant was holding Alexis at gunpoint, he ordered her to put Chase down. Alexis sets Chase down and he runs to the trash cans in the driveway and attempts to hide from the defendant. Alexis runs to a nearby firehouse to attempt to get help. While Chase hid, Laura physically fought with the defendant and attempted to take the firearm from him. During the fight, Laura placed her thumb over the barrel of the gun, and the defendant shot her in an attempt to get her to release the firearm.
He's standing there with the rifle trained on Alexis saying, put Chase down. So she sets him down, and that's when Chase tries to go hide by the trash cans. I just can't imagine what these boys and all of them were feeling. Alexis goes off to the firehouse. She's trying to get help. Now, we've heard some of those other 911 calls previously, for Alexis off trying to get help. The one woman who called and said, she says her stepfather's killing everybody. So Chase is hiding and Laura is still just battling for her young boy's life. Like, at least let me save Chase. She's fighting, she's trying to get the gun from him. She even placed her thumb over the barrel of the gun, and he had the nerve to shoot her just to get her to release the gun.
4:16 through 4:21 p.m. After shooting Laura, the defendant turns to Chase and attempts to execute him, but the firearm jams. The defendant attempts to clear the firearm multiple times in the driveway. Despite being shot, Laura grabs Chase and begins to flee with him. The defendant, however, also grabs onto Chase, struggles to tear the child away from Laura, even biting Laura to get her to let Chase go.
And then, almost in a saving grace, like his gun is jamming, where he can't shoot Chase at first, and he's trying to clear the rifle in the driveway. It's not working. So Laura, even in her pain, being shot, she's grabbing Chase and trying to save Chase. But then, like a tug of war, Chad is grabbing onto Chase and pulling Chase away from Laura and even biting her. We read part of this before, but just hearing it in the presser and seeing some of it almost just brings it all to life. So he bit her and they're struggling. Laura is valiantly fighting with Chad.
4:16 through 4:21 p.m. The struggle between Laura and the defendant continues into the house. Chase is put down while the two continue to fight. The defendant goes into the gun safe and attempts to reload the firearm. Laura continues to fight with the defendant, even slamming his hand into the safe. The defendant is able to fight off Laura and returns outside where he executes Chase, shooting the child once in the head.
The fight continues even into the house, so she's just like fighting. So Chase is put down and Laura and Chad are continuing to fight. So he's going over to that gun safe, trying to reload his jammed weapon. And I love that Laura even is slamming his hands into the safe. But you know, Laura is a teeny little petite thing, you can see from that one photo. So Chad was able to fight her off, unfortunately, go outside and shoot Chase once in the head.
4:16 through 4:21 p.m. After the defendant hunted down and executed the three boys, the defendant goes to the field and picks up Clayton, throwing the child over his shoulder. He carries Clayton to the yard and lies Clayton next to Hunter. The defendant then brings Chase over and lies him next to his brothers.
So it's bad enough he's executed all three of his boys. He's going to the field. He's picking up Clayton, putting him over his shoulder, puts him in the yard, laying Clayton next to Hunter. And then he brings Chase over and lays him next to his brothers. Why? What's the point of all this? We have a graph of the positions of where he laid them initially.
4:21 p.m. 5 minutes after the first call, Laura makes a second 911 call.
So 5 minutes after her first call, Laura had made that second call. Again, heartbreaking. Some of these calls you can hear Chad in the background, different things move and all these things. I couldn't tell if you could hear any shots in the calls. And we've seen this body cam video footage before, but I think I'll probably include it unless I need to trim it out. But we've seen this before. These deputies, Deputy Sparks, Deputy Popham with the Claremont County Sheriff's Office again. They arrive and thank God they were able to take Chad into custody. They were going to have to take him down if they had to. He's sitting there just with his rifle next to him on the porch. He had even had a cigarette, we noticed before. And, I ain't gonna hurt you. Don't worry. I'm laying on the ground. It's a little uncomfortable, after just like murdering his beautiful little boys. But he's a little uncomfortable on the ground.
Where's he at?
He said, shooter's on the porch.
Get him right here. You got him on the porch.
We've asked, not the last place we've been told.
You show me your hands now! Stand up and walk towards us! Stand up now! Walk towards us! Stand up with your hands up!
We know we got a visual in the mail. Not showing his hands, not following commands.
Stand up now!
I'm not showing hands or following commands. His name is Chad Doerman. Chad Doerman.
I know, but we can't.
People need first aid, and he's not complying. And he's a shooter. Shoot him.
We gotta find cover first. We ain't no good if we ain't safe ourselves. Hey, no. We need to come from this side where we can see them. Don't take cover behind her. We see them. We're going to approach from this side. We got cover. Right here.
6-1, Trevor, 29 and 63 is type out.
We're not okay right now.
Show us your fucking hands now! Stand up! Stand up! Stand up! Stand up now! Stand up! Stand the fuck up!
EMS to stage and air clear is going to go ahead and fly whenever any units can advise.
Get your hands up here.
72.
Tell them we're 21. Send the air.
Those guys can confirm that there's people that need first aid, and that's the shooter who's not complying. They need to take care of the
I got it.
victims. They have to shoot him and shoot him.
Man, I ain't trying to hurt nobody. I'm completely sober. Never did drugs a day
63,
in my
we're
life.
21. Get the EMS over here.
Well, I did drugs when I was little, but I don't do drugs now. I'm sober. I'm not trying to fight you.
63.
Get your butt inside. Gatlin, get your butt inside.
We on primary?
Now.
29, we got 3 kids down.
3 kids down, 16 feet up.
Gatlin.
63, we're 21. Have
Knock it off.
EMS respond over here.
You're clear, they're being advised.
Robert 34, just started mass casualty response.
63, do you want them to respond to the Laurel Lindale address? Where exactly do you need them?
We're right in the front yard. What are you doing, man?
Hey, are you copying all this?
Can I roll over? I ain't gonna hurt you. I ain't gonna hurt nobody.
You got anything on you?
No, I ain't got nothing, man. Phone, that's it. I ain't mad. I ain't nothing. Just make sure that dog don't come out. I don't think he'll bite you. Just don't reach for him and try to grab him and pet him.
All right.
He won't bite you.
What's going on, man?
Nothing. Can I stand up? It's kind of uncomfortable.
I'm gonna
I
get
ain't
you
gonna
here
do
in a
nothing. I ain't running
second.
away. You can do whatever you want with me.
Here. You the only one else inside the house?
What?
You the only one else inside the house?
Yep.
Sit down right here.
My daughter, she ran over to the fire department.
Sit down.
It's my stepdaughter.
Put him in the cage.
This is Will.
When the defendant is placed in handcuffs by Deputies Sparks and Popham, Clayton's blood can be seen on the back of the defendant's shirt from where he carried the boy from the field. As first responders begin to render life-saving measures on each of the boys, the location of the children changes. Deputy Sparks carries Chase to the end of the driveway, where he performs CPR on the child. EMS personnel carry Hunter to an ambulance where life-saving measures were performed. These are ultimately the positions of the children when they are pronounced deceased.
You saw the blood on the back of Chad's shirt, and the EMTs are trying to, save the boys, but unfortunately it's too late. Laura's getting treatment too. And then we have some audio. This was the controversial audio where Chad is like, "Tell them I did it, take me to jail."
While first responders tend to the boys, the defendant was secured by Deputy Scott Rudd in the back of a cruiser. While in the cruiser, the defendant made various statements such as, "Tell them I did it, take me to jail."
Get a housing from the firehouse. Tell them I did it. Take me to jail.
So that part was his confession, and then he's claiming he never made a confession, or was he properly Mirandized? Was he properly read his Miranda rights? I love that cop who walked him out to the vehicle and was like, basically, shut the F up. You have the right to remain silent, effing use it. So Chad was off to the Claremont County Sheriff's Office to just tell his lies. So they go through all this NGRI, what it entails, if initially he was going to go for not guilty by reason of insanity. They talk about severe mental illnesses, but they do note, look, prior to that June 15th day, there was no indication that Chad had ever been treated for some mental health condition.
The defendant is then transported to the Claremont County Sheriff's Office to be interviewed. During the interview conducted by detectives Mike Ross, Mike Green, and Sean Schubert, the defendant makes various statements which illustrate his intent. When asked the name and ages of his children, the defendant names the kids in the order he murdered them.
How many children do you have?
4.
What are their names?
Plunder, Clayton, Chase, and Alexis.
Hunter, Creighton, Chase, and Alexis? What do you say?
Clayton.
Creighton? How old's Hunter?
4.
How old's Creighton?
Clayton.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was worried that I was saying that wrong. How old's Clayton?
7.
How old's Chase?
3.
And how old's Alexis? Is she?
14.
And, you know, this is heavy on you, and it's something that you couldn't sleep because you knew that day was coming and it was building.
Yeah.
And that's why you couldn't work today. You knew it had to be done, and you came home.
Do you remember your wife trying to stop you from shooting your children?
That's why you gotta do her first.
The defendant acknowledged that he couldn't sleep or work leading up to the murders because he knew what he was going to do. The defendant also tells detectives that because Laura tried to stop him, he should have killed her first. After his interview, the defendant is subsequently indicted by a Claremont County grand jury. The defendant was indicted on 21 counts, including 9 counts of aggravated murder, 3 counts for Clayton, Hunter, and Chase each. Defenses: not guilty, by reason of insanity, NGRI or mental status at the time of the offenses. The defendant had a severe mental disease or defect, and the defendant did not know, as the result of a severe mental disease or defect, the wrongfulness of his actions. Serious mental illness. The person has been diagnosed with one of the following: schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, bipolar disorder, delusional disorder, and, at the time of the aggravated murder, the condition with which the defendant has been diagnosed significantly impaired the person's capacity to exercise rational judgment in relation to 1. Conforming the person's conduct to the requirements of law, 2. Appreciating the nature, consequences, or wrongfulness of his conduct. Evidence of mental disease. Prior to June 15, 2023, the defendant was never diagnosed, treated, or prescribed any medication for any mental health condition.
So was this undiagnosed, as many mental health conditions can be undiagnosed, or was this something that he came up with that day? So they had different experts, and of course the experts didn't agree. One thought he did not meet the criteria of NGRI, another's like, oh, he's bipolar, without any evidence to say how you came to that conclusion. Basically, again, it's saying, look, the way Chad acted right after this tragedy, it's not consistent with someone who's totally deluded. You know, that's why it's good to have these experts realize, okay, who's truly in a state of delusion? Who is truly having a mental break? And who is just maybe just evil and maybe trying to use the courts to their advantage and say, oh, I don't know what happened. Oh, I don't know. And then for Chad to play around later and say, I remember every single thing.
NGRI findings. Defense expert, Dr. Robert Stinson. Courts expert, Dr. Emily Davis. Despite the defense's contention, The experts did not agree. Both doctors indicated it was likely the defendant suffered from a mood disorder at the time of the offenses. However, Dr. Davis opined that the defendant did not meet the criteria for NGRI. Dr. Davis opined, "With all of the information considered and reviewed, it is my opinion that despite the defendant experiencing some symptoms of severe mental disease, it is my opinion that he continued to know the wrongfulness of his behaviors in the offenses charged. Although some collateral records suggest a delusional thought process that served as motivation, there are also behaviors demonstrated by the defendant and commentary that he makes around the time of the offenses that indicates he continued to know the wrongfulness of his actions." Neither Dr. Stinson nor Dr. Davis were able to diagnose the defendant with any specific mental health disease at the time of their respective NGRI evaluations. During all evaluations, and while incarcerated, all three doctors agreed that the defendant exhibited no acute mental health symptoms and received no mental health treatment or medication. The various statements made by the defendant are not considered consistent with someone in the throes of a delusion. SMI findings. After being unable to diagnose the defendant during his NGRI evaluation, Dr. Stinson subsequently issued a report as to his SMI opinion. Despite no additional testing or meetings with the defendant, Dr. Stinson opined that the defendant was bipolar at the time of the murders. Dr. Stinson provided no explanation in his report as to how he came to that conclusion, which was contrary to the required diagnostic criteria set forth in the DSM-IV. The court appointed Dr. Carla Dreyer to conduct a second SMI evaluation of the defendant. Dr. Dreyer opined that the defendant did not suffer from a serious mental illness at the time of the offenses that significantly impaired his capacity to exercise rational judgment in relation to his conduct with respect to either conforming his conduct to the requirements of law or appreciating the nature, consequence, or wrongfulness of his conduct. Dr. Dreyer opined further that, with regard to the statutory criteria, records suggest that the defendant has a history of controlling behaviors, as well as poor frustration tolerance and chronic anger, likely related to his underlying personality structure. Dr. Dreyer also noted, the available information indicates that the defendant took multiple steps to kill his children, shooting his wife and threatening his stepdaughter in the process. He made statements to indicate that he knew he was killing them. Mr. Doerman's careful execution of the murders, coupled with statements he made to law enforcement after they arrived on scene, indicated that he appreciated the nature of what he did, as well as the wrongfulness and consequences of such. Defendant's statements. The defendant has made a variety of statements about whether or not he killed his sons, and occasionally why he committed the acts. Often these statements were in contradiction with one another. At times the defendant denied being the shooter. At times the defendant claimed to remember nothing about the shooting, and at other times claimed to remember everything. June 15, 2023. Defendant's interview.
Did you shoot your son?
No.
Who did?
I don't remember. What happened?
That's what I want to ask you. What happened today? I don't know. I wasn't there.
I don't know what happened today. What happened?
June 25th, 2023. Defendant's call with his mother.
She's breathing and she's suffering really bad.
No, I was going to call her.
You probably should not call her, Chad. I mean, your mother telling you this.
Oh, yeah. Should be right there.
You took away everything. And I know you don't remember it. And you know only what they tell you. But she remembers.
No, I remember everything.
You do?
Mhm. Yep.
I don't. I'm not talking about nothing. Because you said you didn't. I know you don't. You're lying.
No, I swear to God, I do. Yep. All the way to the point, and all the way to all the reasons why and everything.
So Chad was going in and out of, naming his kids in the order he shot them, but then claiming he didn't shoot them, and then when he was in the car saying, just tell him I did it. Take me to jail. So there was his June 15th, 2023 interview, and then that June 25th, 2023 call with his mom. Those recorded jail calls and just his hubris, his cockiness. I always wonder how he acted before. We know that Chad had gone to jail before. There was something, we didn't get a lot of details. Something was going on between him and his dad, and he's been to jail before, but it would be really interesting to hear what it was like growing up. Did he always kind of act this cocky and just like, I don't know, kind of like he was just going against his mom? Because she's saying, I know you don't remember what happened that day, Chad. You only have what people have told you. And he's just like, no, I remember every single thing. And she's like, well, I'm going to stop talking. It's like she knows she's being recorded. And she's like, but because you're lying. Basically, she knew because Chad had said, oh, I don't remember anything. I only know what people tell me, I guess. But now he's all like, oh, I remember every single thing. Kind of like, oh, I have a secret and I'm not going to tell you. I know why I did it and everything. And he's just so cavalier. Even his own mom is trying to say how just heartbroken, grieving Laura is, just the devastation of what you did to her. Kind of like, oh, she'll be all right. Like, I'll call her. His mom is like, no, don't call her. His mom probably knows, look, these phone calls are recorded and whatever you call her and say to her, it won't go over well. And Laura probably doesn't want to hear from you. What can you say to a woman whose 3 little beautiful boys you take away in such a violent way? Like, why did he do this? Why was he trying to punish his wife so much? Obviously, he punished her. Some people are like, why did he leave Alexis alive? Thank God he did. Why did he leave Laura alive? Even Chad brought that up himself. Oh, that's why you got to do her first. But a lot of people surmise Chad knew the ultimate punishment for Laura would be to take her 3 beautiful boys away. And since Laura and Alexis unfortunately witnessed so much horror, I hope they're getting so much therapy and healing. I can't imagine the PTSD. So I guess Chad thought in his evil ways, the best way to enact evil upon them is not to kill them, but just to kill the little boys and make them live through it. What is his end game? Like, what is the end game of a person who horribly takes out his 3 boys, and then he's going to jail, he's going to prison, so what is his point in doing it all? What does it gain? Some people truly are evil, I guess. Maybe he had feelings Laura might leave him, or I don't know what the issue was, but that was his ultimate way of punishing her. Maybe not even worried about the fact that he would spend the rest of his life in prison, or maybe he'll try and take himself out. Well, I don't know what his plan is, but all of that in his mind was worth it just to hurt Laura and his stepdaughter this much. And then June 27th, 2023, Chad has a jail visit with his parents and his brother, and it's kind of hard to, distinguish the voices and hear everything that's said. I boosted it to 400%, try to enhance it. I'll try and voice enhance it more.
Recorded jail calls. While incarcerated, the defendant continued to make various statements concerning his actions. These statements were recorded and were available to all 3 doctors for review. June 27, 2023. Defendant's jail visit with his parents and brother.
Oh, the psychiatrist. Oh. The psychiatrist wanted me to talk to him. And I wouldn't talk to him. And then the captain came and seen me and was all pissed off because I wouldn't talk to the psychiatrist.
Well, you should have.
No, because I already talked to her and she moved me down to a level 1 and I was supposed to get clothes on. She said he's not a threat to himself. Moved me down to a level 1, told all the cops I was supposed to have clothes on. Well, guess what? I didn't get my clothes on. The next couple of days, they was like, you want to go talk to the psychiatrist? Fuck no. What was that going to do? I'm going to be sitting in this dress tomorrow. It ain't doing me no good. Why am I going to go talk to her? She looked at me and she goes, do you feel bad for what you did? No. And she's just like, okay. And then that was it. That was the end of the conversation. And then she looked at everybody and said, he's not a threat to himself. But if it's big and fresh, then, you know what I mean? He said in New Zealand. That's fucking awful. Hey, they thought Hitler was big, dude. Fuck yeah, I'm matching him.
But you kind of hear them talking about, Chad previously was talking about some woman determining him not being a danger to himself. And there was that point where he talked about not wanting to put on clothes. That was a theme with him, if you remember that one video. And of course they blur stuff, but when they tried to bring him to court that one time, bring him to his hearing, that's why he was dressed just in that turtle suit alone, because they gave us the behind the scenes where they're like, look, the one officer goes in there and is like, Chad, don't disrespect me this way, like put on some clothes. So Chad kind of acknowledges certain points where he doesn't want to put on clothes. I swear he sounds like a 4-year-old. Oh, she was trying to get me to put on clothes and something about no clothes. And then he's saying, no, he's not a danger to himself, because the woman is like, look, do you feel sorry for anything you did? And he's just like, no. So if he didn't, why was he crying in court hearing Alexis's victim impact statement? Why was he crying? And other times he's cried in court, but then he turned right around and was asking to go to some specific institution or wanting specific protection or something. So he is very self-focused and worried about himself, but then the nerve to be bragging like, no, I'm matching Hitler. Like that's a good thing. Like he's Googling happy in hell. He's kind of, all his notoriety. Now I'm matching Hitler. I don't know. So anyway, he pled guilty to all of these counts.
Plea count 1, aggravated murder of Clayton, guilty. Count 2, aggravated murder of Hunter, guilty. Count 3, aggravated murder of Chase, guilty. Count 18, felonious assault of Alexis, guilty. Count 20, felonious assault of Laura, guilty. Sentencing. Count 1, life without parole. Count 2, life without parole. Count 3, life without parole. Count 18, 8 to 12 years. Count 20, 8 to 12 years.
He was sentenced life without parole and all that stuff, and I love Laura's message to the community.
A message to the community from Laura Doerman. No one who knew the defendant could have imagined the person they knew before June 15, 2023, committing these acts. If you are struggling with thoughts of self-harm or with thoughts of harming others, or if you know anyone who is, please reach out. You will not be judged. Help is available to you. Call 988 or go to your nearest hospital. Violence is never the solution.
No one knew he would do this, but it can help, I guess, other people. Anyone struggling with thoughts of harm to themselves or others, call 388 or go to your nearest hospital. Violence is never the solution. Indeed. Luke 24:45 through 47. Then he, Jesus, opened their minds to help them understand the scriptures and said, and so it is written that the Christ, the Messiah, the Anointed, would suffer and rise from the dead on the third day, and that repentance necessary for forgiveness of sins would be preached in his name to all the nations, beginning from Jerusalem. Whoa, forgiveness of sins. If Chad was going to carry around a Bible, I wish he would have opened it and read scriptures like that and understood. There's nowhere in the Bible God is telling him to do what he did to his family. That's false. That's a farce. Some people just, I don't know. It's just they let evil overtake them. So I am glad, even though there was all that talk about the death penalty and everything, I am glad at least he pled guilty. This is one case where there's, I guess, closure. It's not dragging on for years and years and years. It just happened, this tragedy last year, and now he's pled guilty. And so some people think, it's better to serve the rest of your life in prison. Some people think it's better to serve time on death row and eventually, let the state take you out. I know there's a lot of controversy on both sides, but I'm glad he pled guilty at least. I just really pray for the women left, even Chad's soul. I pray for all of them. I know sometimes people don't understand that, but I really pray for Laura and Alexis Alexis, that they can be healed. It's a supernatural work that only God could. Whew, I hope they hold on to the knowledge that they will see the 3 boys in heaven again in Jesus. These cute little boys, I think of them just fishing up there. Like, that's what I thought about last night. Happy in heaven, fishing, running, playing, no pain. I pray that Laura and Alexis can hold on to that image and wait to see them again, and that Chad lets go of this happy in hell, whatever the heck is wrong with him. He's not even being medicated now, so I don't know what the heck his diagnosis was. Just controlling, maybe some personality structure conflicts. I still don't understand. Like, it's just evil. He knew what he was doing was wrong. He was just getting some kind of get back, some kind of, what the heck was he doing? I don't know. That's why I get into these cases, because I always want to know what's in the person's mind. And when I don't get a clear answer, it does get frustrating. But at least we can pray for victims. We can hope to continually see justice meted out as God wishes and God wills. Thank you so much for watching all this. Again, I put links below to previous videos, Patreon videos, stuff I've forgotten. I don't know how much I'll squish in this one video to try and make this all cohesive, but I thank God for them providing this PowerPoint, which Patreon does not let me upload a PowerPoint, so I can't give you guys a link to download the PowerPoint. I wouldn't want everyone hitting that Dropbox link, I guess. I don't know if I'm supposed to do that. Just like in Colorado, when everybody tried to hit the same Google Drive link, whew, it went kapooey. They had to start over and it didn't work. I did turn that PowerPoint presentation into, a huge narrated video. So you've watched most of it here. If you want to hear the 911 calls, watch them over there. Yeah, I guess we just move on. Hopefully just not hearing much about Chad Doerman anymore, and pray for strength for Laura and Alexis. Maybe Laura will tell her story one day. It could help a lot of other victims of this type of violence, and pray for her soul to prosper in Jesus' name, despite everything these women have gone through with such an evil, violent man. Thank you so much for watching. As always, stay tuned. I'm sure we have many more cases coming down the pipeline, unfortunately. Many, many more. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.